Aharon Felder.
Good evening. Rishus the Rosh Yeshiva and the Menahel, the Choshev Rabbeim and the entire Hanhala and administration of Yeshiva Farakaway, Rishus Rabbi Yisrael Efrati Shlita, and other distinguished Rabbanim, Rishus, my dear friend and classmate, Rabbi Daniel Kalish Shlita, his incredible mother, Rebbetzin Kalish, who should live and be well, the entire Kalish Mishpacha and extended family, and Rishus all of you, the Bnei Yeshiva, friends, and my fellow Mispalim of the Beis Medrash of Harvard. I'm truly humbled to have been asked by the family to share some thoughts with you tonight regarding my Rebbe Muvuk and Murad Asra, Harav Yehoshua ben Rabbi Nachum Mendel Halevi Zechet Tzadok Lebracha, from both the perspective of a long-time Talmud for nearly 3.5 decades, as well as in the Mispalel and the Rav Shul for over 25 years. In earnest, my relationship with Rebbe Zatzal started right here in the 11th grade with Masechtas Nedarim. That year, through Rebbe's constant encouragement, patience, and guidance, was the first year I was zocheh to be Messiah Masechta in Shas. And that became the springboard to what would be the first of more siyumim I would make Baruch Hashem over the coming years. But as soon as I completed Nedarim, Rebbe gave me a big hug and a mazel tov and said to me, Aharon, you've made it past the first step, but don't forget, you said Hadron Allah, that you will return to it. So now you need to set a schedule to chazer it and be kind of it while learning next month's Masechta, and then keep repeating the process. And coming from a man who chazered at least 7.5 blot a day, it was hard to come up with a plausible excuse not to. He taught me what it means to love Torah, to be transformed by Limanat Torah, and was the living embodiment of the pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Yates, Ma'ahavti Sarasecha Kol Hayom Hisichasi. Therefore, this makom, this space, holds a very important and cherished place in my heart. Even as I stand here, so many of the wonderful memories of my youth spent in this unparalleled makom Torah are flooding back to me. I don't think it's a guzma to say that this yeshiva and the incomparable mechanchim and chaverim who were there during my many years learning and growing here shaped and molded me into the person I am today and laid the strong foundation for the dairas that have Baruch Hashem followed and who also continue to have the great zchus to learn in this phenomenal yeshiva. Between the hundreds of Musar Vadim and my many years-long first Zeder Chavrusa Shaf with the Rosh Yeshiva, Harav Yehoshua Kalish Zatzal, admiring and learning from my Menahel, Rav Aharon Brafman Zatzal's dogma of Emunah and Bitachon, Ernstkeit, Ehrlichkeit, and carrying the ol of Klal Yisrael's tzaras on his broad shoulders, and the unceasing hasmada and unimaginable Bein Adam L'Chavero of my dear Rav, Rav Yehoshua Kalish Zatzal, you couldn't help but be affected positively by the wisdom, the love, the care, and the example of shleimus in all aspects of Avodas Hashem that seem to flow so effortlessly from these giants amongst men. It is in this makom especially that I feel them and their life lessons with me so much more acutely, and I am constantly makar tov to them for all they have given to me and to my family as I carry them with me and quote them always. Interestingly, Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal asked why the expression of hamakom is used in 3 different places that appear to have no connection to one another. We say hamakom by nicham avelim when we say the words hamakom yinachem estem b'sok sharai ve'leitzim v'Yerushalayim. We say similarly in the Agadah Shel Pesach we refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when we say Baruch Hamakom Baruch Hu. And finally, on Yom Kippur, we also associate HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Hamakom when we say Al Das Hamakom Ve'al Das Hakol on Kol Nidrei Night. The question is, why specifically is the term Hamakom used in these 3 instances that appear to have nothing in common? I heard a beautiful teretz from Rabbi Bergman, a close family friend and one of our Amudei Ha'ir, using another observation from Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal, who also asked, Why do we say Lashana Haba Yerushalayim Dafka on the Seder night, and also at the conclusion of Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur? And he said it's because these days of Pesach and Yom Kippur are the most popular Yom Tovim, because virtually every Yid, whether they are from or not yet religiously observant, relates to them in some way. But more importantly, they share a core commonality in that the central focus of each of these Yom Tovim is missing today. On Pesach, we had the Korban Pesach that every Jewish family would partake in. That was the centerpiece of the celebration of Pesach, and that is missing Bisman Hazeh. And therefore we say, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, to stress that we are in Mirza Hashem going to be able to experience Pesach again as it's supposed to be. And we find the same idea by Yom Kippur. The main event of Yom Kippur was the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol that everyone came to participate in and waited anxiously to confirm that HaKadosh Baruch Hu bestowed Tzlicha Mechila to Klal Yisrael. And it is that centerpiece, the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol, when he went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim once a year, that is glaringly missing today. Therefore we say L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim here too, because we are longing for a time when the Yom Tif will once again be complete. But if you think about it more deeply, you realize something powerful. Even though the centerpiece of these two Yom Tovim, namely the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol and the Korban Pesach, are missing, the voids themselves actually frame these respective Yom Tovim for us. If you can see the Korban Pesach in your mind's eye, which is physically missing, it creates the makom, it creates the space of the entire Seder. The whole Seder relates to and revolves around the message and the inspiration of the Korban Pesach. The Zroya, the egg, reminds us of the Korban Pesach. We eat matzah like Hillel ate it, Bizman Shabeis HaMikdash HaYakayim. And we end the Seder with the Afikomen, and Chazal say that we should eat two kazesim, Keneged the Korban Pesach and Keneged Achilas Matzah. So even though the experience of having the actual Korban Pesach is missing, the memory of the Korban Pesach becomes the inspiration, becomes the framing, and becomes the makam of the Seder. The same applies to Yom Kippur as well. Yom Kippur really all revolves around the Avodah and our remembrance of the Avodah in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. We have 10 viduyim connected the 10 tefillas of the Kohen Gadol. We have 5 tefillas connected the 5 times the Kohen Gadol changed his clothing. We even bow during our recitation of the Avodah in Musaf to remember and to connect to it. It is that remembrance of the Avodah that creates the makam and creates the space of Yom Kippurim. So even though we are missing the Korban Pesach and we are missing the Avodah of Yom Kippur, we still have a bit of a nechama. And the nechama that we have is hamakam. Chazal are relaying to us that even though we may not have the actual Korban Pesach, but we have the makam of the Korban Pesach. And we may not have the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, but we have the makam of the Avodah of Yom Kippur. And we place our Pesach Seder in that makam. And we place our collective tefillas on Yom Kippur in that makam. And by doing so, we can be assured that the memory of these events will become a hope for L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. And if this is our makam, we are certain that we are going to re-experience it in its fullest form, B'karav Mamish. And that is why we use the term hamakom by Nicham Avelim as well. When someone passes away, Rahman al-Itzlan, there is understandably a huge void that ensues for those who are close to the nifter and the world at large. Chazal are teaching us, you know how you create a nechama? That person, the nifter, that inspiration should become our makom. They should become our roadmap in how to live a life of avodas Hashem, steady and whole. And it should frame our existence and envelop us. By doing this, we will always remain connected to that person, even after Me'av Yesrim. And we are certain that we are going to re-encounter that person by Tchias HaMesim. L'shana haba is not only a hope, and it is not only a prayer. It is a certainty, b'vados, that we are going to witness the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur in all of its glory, the bringing of the Korban Pesach, Kedas U'Kedin, as well as this nifter, healthy and vibrant once again, speedily in our days. The Rav Zatzal was such an inspiration to us all and made such a tremendous erosion that he quite literally forever changed our makam for the better. Whether it was here in Yeshiva Farakaway, in the Beis Medrash of Harborview, in the local kollel that he spearheaded, in the kollel in Eretz Yisrael he often visited, in the Daf HaYomi Shiurim in Shaarei Tefillah, in Waterbury, Connecticut, with the Bachram of the yeshiva there, who he considered his Einiklach, and in the hearts and minds of countless more. Even though it has only been a month since the devastating loss of my Rebbe and Rav Zatzal, I've already counted 13 times that I needed to call him for either a shayla in halacha or hadracha. There's no one in my life other than my own father, alav shalom, that knew me and my family like the Rav Zatzal did. And his answers to our shaylas, as well as his advice throughout our lives, was always based on the particular circumstances and personalities of those asking. He took everything into account before rendering a psak halacha, and was always so reachable, I used to think that I must be the only one asking him shaylas. But nothing could be further from the truth. The Rav Zatzal's guidance was sought by thousands, well beyond our immediate kehillah, and their feelings for the Rav are in no way different than mine. We all cherished him. We all were in awe of him. And we were also fortunate and proud to call him our Rav and our Manig. But the Rav Zatzal was also our friend. In Emistik Chavertayv. The Mishnah in Avos famously instructs us, Asay l'charav u'knei l'chachaver. With the Rav Zatzal, I got both for the price of one. And while the breadth and scope of the Rav Zatzal's Yediyas in Tanakh, Bikiyas in Halacha, and mastery of Shas Bavli and Yerushalmi with Rishonim and Achronim were legendary, and he enjoyed nothing more than being marvitz them to the masses of all ages, it is his warm smile, his zest for life, his embrace, his kind word, his pride in us, and his love for us that I will miss the most. In equal measure to the Rav Zatzal's exemplary Bein Adam L'Makom was his Bein Adam L'Chavero. He always put everyone at ease, irrespective of the situation, and what I believe was the epitome of his anivus, this giant of a man, incredulously, just never seemed to take himself too seriously. When my now 19-year-old daughter was around 5 years old, she came into the men's section of shul towards the end of Shabbos davening to get a lollipop. Before we left to go home, I told her I needed to go say good Shabbos to the Rav, and she asked if she could come with me. As I was speaking to the Rav, my daughter looked straight up at Rabbi Kalish and blurted out, "Can I feel your beard?" I was mortified. But before I had a chance to apologize to the Rav or to reprimand my daughter, the Rav broke out in laughter and smiled at her, knelt down, picked her up in his arms, l'fnei ve'eda in front of the entire kehillah, and stood there holding her until she had sufficiently satisfied her curiosity. And believe me when I tell you, she really dug into that beard with both of her little hands and took her sweet old time exploring it. That minute felt like an eternity for me. But the Rav Zatzal just continued smiling and told her, "I grew the beard just for you because I heard you liked them." And that is why it is the children of our shul that are feeling the pain of this loss in a very real and visceral way as well. They too lost a tremendous friend and one of their greatest cheerleaders in life. And as makpid as the Rav always was on having proper decorum in the Beis HaKnesses, he would never allow anyone to shush a child, because he felt that every experience a child has in shul must remain a positive memory and association, so that when they grow up, they would want to be there and enjoy being there. Additionally, the Rav was always quick to remind us that in the years immediately following the Holocaust, unfortunately, shuls didn't have as many children around for obvious reasons. To the Rav, the presence and the sound of children's voices was music to his ears, as it represented the nitzlius and future of Klal Yisrael. In part, this is why, at least in my capacity as an elected official and trustee of the Village of Lawrence, I and my fellow board members have unanimously voted and ordered that the entirety of Harborview South, which is the street where the Rav Shul and home are located, will henceforth also be known and memorialized with the corresponding appropriate signage as Harav Yehoshua Kalish Way, so that every man, woman, and child will forever know that there once lived a larger-than-life tzaddik here who walked these very same streets and who quite literally transformed this place and the lives of the people who lived here in the most positive of ways. And that we too will always be reminded to lead our lives the Harav Yehoshua Kalish way, and never forget the impact he had and will continue to have on this community and beyond. On yet another occasion several years back, my wife had a surgical procedure a few days before Yom Kippur. She called the Rav prior to Yom Tiv to ask him some shilas about whether or not she needed to push herself to daven in shul, and what proper halachic protocol would be to allow her to take her post-operative medications with the right shiurim of water. The Rav Zatzal gave her exact instructions with regard to both. But that year, my father, Olav Shalom, was the Baal Musaf in the White Shul for the Yom Neroim, as he had been for over 3 decades. And I was davening with my father as I normally did for the entirety of Yom Kippur. After Yom Tif, I returned home to find out that the Rav Zatzal left Shul on Yom Kippur in the middle of his davening, not during the break. Took a 10-minute walk to my house because he knew I was in the White Shul and couldn't do it. Knocked on my front door and asked my housekeeper how my wife was feeling, because he had inquired in Shul and found out that my wife hadn't been there at all to that point, and he was worried about her. When my housekeeper told the Rav that my wife was resting comfortably and was planning to come to Shul a bit later, the Rav returned to Shul with no fanfare. He didn't tell anyone where he had gone, and my wife didn't even know that he had stopped by. We both found out from our housekeeper after Yom Tif while we were breaking our fast. I ask you, what person does that on a regular day, let alone on the holiest and most introspective personal day of the year, and especially a Rav of his stature? But we were always on his mind, because the Rav cared so deeply about the physical and spiritual health of each one of us. The Rav always emphasized to us the importance of taking care of and respecting one's spouse, and took the Inyan of Shalom Bayis very seriously. Even when encouraging us to attend his various shiurim, it would always include the refrain, only come to the shiur if your wife is okay with you going and she doesn't need your help at home at that time. He always thought of others first, and nothing was ever about him. The Rav Zatzal, more than anything else, just wanted to connect to us, whether it be through learning Torah together, skiing on the water or the snow, playing a competitive game of tennis, or leading an impromptu kumsitz with his professional accordion playing skills. The Rav Zatzal wanted us to experience all of the beautiful facets of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world along with him, and knew that would make us all better Ovdei Hashem. He celebrated our successes and simchas as if they were his own, and danced at those simchas with the vigor and intensity of Bachar in the third his age. He did every single thing in life b'simcha, enjoying it and fully experiencing it. And even in times of great sadness, Rahman al-Islam, like when my family lost our patriarch, my father, Olav Shalom, a few months ago, or when we lost my brother-in-law, Robi Flegman, Olav Shalom, several years ago, it was the Rav Zatzal who held our hands, gave us proper perspective, and was the shoulder we cried on as he cried along with us. His love for and sensitivity towards Yidden and Yiddishkeit was otherworldly. The Rav Zatzal was colorblind to the type of yarmulke you donned on your head, and he even paskined that a jacket or hat was not required to be worn to get an aliyah or to daven for the Yom in our shul, so as not to chas v'shalom make anyone feel uncomfortable. With his ayin taiva, he saw straight through to people's neshamas and their goodness, to their chelek alakam imal, but never focused on their exteriors, which is why he never had a bad word to say about anyone. But the Rav Zatzal wasn't just a gadol when it came to the big things that we all could clearly witness. He also paid close attention to the little things and felt nothing was beneath him. I remember walking into the shul's lobby early prior to Mincha one day before anyone else had arrived. But I noticed I wasn't alone and that the Rav was there, but he didn't see me come in. He was busy picking up other people's tissues from the floor that had apparently missed their intended target and was throwing them out in the nearby garbage can. Big people do the seemingly small things too, and apparently even when they think no one else is watching, because they know that if there's a need for something to be done, big or small, they fill that need and they don't wait for anyone else to do it. But a large part of the nechama I get now is my shaykhus to and relationship with the Rav Zatzals and the Rebbetzins L'Zayin Gesund's incredible children and grandchildren, the phenomenal peiros of their glorious tree, who have assumed the mantle and so nobly honor the legacy of their father and grandfather in all of their hanhagas and midas. And I thank you for sharing the Rav with us for all of these years. We all truly lost the best part of who we are and who we still aspire to be. Most of all, though, the Rav Zatzal showed me how a seemingly ordinary local boy, educated in our local yeshivas just as I was, could grow to such extraordinary heights in Torah, Tefillah, and Midas Tovos. Therefore, his life serves as a machayev to all of us, of what is possible when one is committed to and focused on doing the Ratzon Hashem, no matter your background, life circumstance, or intellectual capabilities. He taught us by example that when one lives the best version of themselves, they will inevitably inspire others to live the best version of themselves. So where do we go from here? We will never move on, but we must move forward, as I know the Rav Zatzal would want us to. It is so very difficult to lose a father, a Rebbe, a mentor, a Rav, and a good friend. How much more so when they are all wrapped up into the same individual. But I think that from the aforementioned lessons of the Seder of Pesach and Yom Kippur, we realize that even though the Rav Zatzal might not be physically here, he is always in our makom. He is the space where we now live, exist, and Bezras Hashem will continue to thrive in. He frames our life, and his inspiration is something that will always be in the forefront of our minds and in the depths of our heart. The entire Far Rockaway, Lawrence, and Five Towns community and beyond are the makom of Harav Yehoshua Kalish Zatzal. By being inspired by his life and memory, I think we can all in some way carry him with us, the same way we carry the Karban Pesach and the Seder and the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. The ultimate nechama comes as a result of turning the person who is nifter into the makom, and then the makom can, with siyata d'shmaya, become a makayim. By doing so, we can be sure that in fact, Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim habnuya, and with that we are certain that we are taka going to see him again, hug him again, and bask in his glory again, b'vias Mashiach Zikainu b'karav mamish. In the meantime, just as the Gemara in Sotah Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis teaches us, that Yosef HaTzadik received the strength to persevere over his challenges by seeing the image of his father appear to him. I too will forever have the Demus Dyuknoi Shel Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who loved us and believed in us so much, seared in my mind. Specifically, the image of our Rav Zatzal, standing upright, confidently, and courageously through all fatigue in front of the Aharon Kodesh this past Ne'ilah, and crying until there were no more tears left, pleading with HaKadosh Baruch Hu as only someone in his predicament could, while mustering up the strength to say the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachman over and over again with such a bren and with such a munah pshuta. Who of us who were there will ever be able to forget the Rav's Hashem Hashem Kal Rachem Echanun Erech HaPayim V'Rav Chesed B'Emes. He believed in the boundless chesed of the Ribbono Shel Olam with every fiber of his being, both in health and especially in sickness, lo aleinu. But despite what he was going through, he wasn't just davening for himself up there at the Aharon Kodesh. Amongst a myriad of other things, he had the names of many of our Kehillah members' children in his matzah with him, my children included, who are still waiting anxiously to find the Bashert. I know this because I was there when the list was handed to him. And not surprisingly, that very same 5-year-old girl, who so many years ago was inexplicably fascinated by and enamored with the Rav's beard, Baruch Hashem became a Kala this past Thursday night. Most assuredly, in no small part, due to the Rav's heartfelt tefillas and intervention. Because like the Bryson in Tainis Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph teaches us the concept that when a tzaddik is geyser, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Makayim. And if the causation of our family's recent Simcha wasn't clear enough already, I think the fact that the Shidduch was read to us immediately the day after this past Yom Kippur solidified it for us. So Mayom B'Delibi, I say thank you, Rebbe, for that and for so much more. And in Eretz Hashem, we will hear even more Besaris Tovas B'Karav from all of the other names on that list, as the Rav Zatzal undoubtedly is the best Melitz Yosher any of us could hope for. But now I also understand beyond the shadow of a doubt that when the Rav Zatzal followed up those Yud Gimel Midas moments later with what would be his final Lashana Haba b'Yerushalayim during that last Kaddish in Ne'ilah, his Taira and Holy Neshama was sending us all a message and a promise that no matter what happens, do not despair, because we will be seeing each other again very shortly, and I will always be here with you. But mostly, I will use as my guide the words that I've heard the Rav Zatzal say countless times throughout his thousands of shiurim. Chevra, let's go weiter together. Yehi Zichrei Baruch.
Simcha Kalish.
terse reticent and laconic. I know people don't like sitting for a long time, so I'll just quickly say some observations. It's hard to stand here without mentioning my beloved Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Per, as I see the Rebbitzin, the feelings I have towards him. He was my shotgun 40 years ago. He took a 15-year-old Yossan and he molded him into a Ben Torah, Magid Shir, children, grandchildren. So I just had to, it was a Martin Simcha to Simcha, but certainly in a mokim of the Hesped, it's certainly worthy to mention, just a Pashut Derech Eretz, to mention my beloved Rosh Yeshiva, which not a day goes by without thinking about him, playing over some of his tapes, playing over his messages on my phone that I still have. So that was something that I must do. I knew Rabbi Kalish for over 40 years, and to this day I don't really know how I met him. I wasn't in his shir. I never davened in his shul. It was just one day when I was learning the Beis Medrash, when it was about the size of the right side, the entire Beis Medrash. There were maybe 12 people in the Beis Medrash at the time. Rabbi Kalish had a chabura. They were learning Kedushin. Rabbi Berman was one of the Arishim chabura. And I was sitting in the back with a chabrusa. And he was wondering why I wasn't participating with his group. And then we just started talking. And after that, we became exceptionally close. The Teres Yisrael in the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos that Ava she'eina tluya b'davar. So the Teres Yisrael brings down a German expression called Sympathia Libo. That you just have a love for someone when you just, even if you met him for the first time, somehow your hearts are linked, it's connected together. And that's how I really met Rabbi Kalish, that we had that attraction. And from that moment on, over 40 years ago, 45 years ago, we shared in all our simchas and we had such a close relationship. I also made him an aid on all of my, all the weddings that I made on the ksuva, because everybody used to ask if Simcha Kalish is Rabbi Kalish's brother. So I made certain to make him an aid on the ksuva so people would realize that he's not my brother. Even though most people said, why is he giving his brother an aid on the ksuva? But we were very close, and I'll just say a couple of words. It's brought down in a hesped that I once attended in Eretz Yisrael almost 50 years ago. It was a hesped that was given by Rabbi Tzavol Zolti, and he was giving a hesped on the great Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky. And there are tears, and everybody is so shook by the death of such a great gadol. And he gets up and he says, everybody has to die sooner or later. He was an older person. What's the shock? Why are you so afraid? What are you so sad about? So he explains from Yisrael Salam to the Pasuk in Hosea. It says in Hosea, Kinai Yisrael V'Yahweh. It says Yisrael Salam to. What's the shot that the Rebbeinu love Klal Yisrael because they're a nar? Says Yisrael Salam to yes. The Rebbeinu loves Klal Yisrael because they have the attribute of a nar, constantly growing, constantly being mechazik, constantly growing and giving over and giving over. And that was said by the Cheskel Abramsky was in his 90s. Certainly Rabbi Kalish was younger, but nonetheless, the average age in America of a male is about 74 years and 6 months. So he exceeded that, but yet, Kinar Yisrael V'Yahweh, that Rabbi Kalish was a Nar Yisrael. He was young, he was vibrant. When someone's young and vibrant that dies, who doesn't have bechiyas? Who doesn't cry for this Adam Gadol? Do we know who he was? I was at a Levian years ago in the garden in Borough Park. Simcha Soloveitchik was giving a hesped on a wine trans, a going awesome, and people were sitting in the small base benches, and he said, everybody here is sitting here, look at where he is now. This is as close as you will ever get to this person. Because the Olam HaEmes, you will never reach the Madrega that this kid reached. And I can attest that Rabbi Kalish, not because that's the all of his Torah, but because of his Mites Toivos, the most amazing Mites Toivos, we're not going to be able to be in his Daladamas. Goyen says, Kol Yom, a whole person's life is all for the purpose of Shiras HaMitos, to destroy bad midos, to acquire good midos. He was a goyin. He was a goyin in midos. You can't imagine the stories I've seen in his goyiness and his midos. He had such respect for his talmidim. He used to give a little daf shir here in the base of Medrash, and he used to tell me, Simcha, you know, this fellow, he's much better than me. He has unbelievable kashas. And to this day, I always used to tell him, okay, the guy's a doctor, maybe he has an IQ of 125, he can't come to your footsteps. He can't come close to you. But he was really feeling the sensitivity of people. He loved people, and he gave them the greatest amount of respect. Even in his shul, I used to pester him. I said, you know, I'm familiar with Rabbanis. I was a Rav in a small base Spanish once. So I tried to pester him. I knew a few of the people who davened in the shul. And I said, how is this Reb, so on and so forth. How's he doing the base Spanish? I wasn't really looking for him to say Lashon Hara, but I wanted to see what I could get out of him. And he said, this Reb, he's amazing. He's an incredible person. I'm thinking, I said, wow, he really means it. And even though I may know the truth, but that's how the respect that he had for his kehillah, for his talmidim, the same love, and to his kehillah as well. You know, one of his talmidim I spoke about, you know, a lot of times we get together, it's a hesped, we talk, and then we leave, and there's no more discussion. I came from a discussion about Rabbi Kalish with one of his talmidim, his first talmid, probably like 1975. Aharon took care, he lives in Eretz Yisrael. You know what he told me? He's already a man in his 60s. And he said that when he really learned his best was by Rabbi Kalish. Those years, I think it was 10th grade, that's where he really learned. And you know what he said? He said, I begged Rabbi Kalish after the end of the year that we should continue learning. I want to continue in this year, next year. I don't want to go to 11th grade. Put me back in the 10th grade. I want to learn with you again. And he's actually writing a letter to the Rebbitzin to express his feelings, and all the successes were really based on that. But it's really an interesting concept, maybe in yeshivas, that you're having success in one particular Rebbe. It's a 9th grade Rebbe, 10th grade Rebbe. What do you have to come into 11th grade or 12th grade Rebbe? You may not be successful with it. It's such a big difference staying with that one Rebbe. Of Kolponim, that's how a Talmud was to his Rebbe. But he's such a guy. He once told me when he was going to Eretz Yisrael to learn the Mir, I think maybe it was a Chaim who asked him, Luke, I hear you learned in Philly. Can you tell me over some Torah from Rebellion? The God Rebellion Shnei. And he said, I have my own Torah. And that was a big Kalish. He wasn't a parrot to mimic Torah. He had his own Torah, he had his clear, lucid Torah, and that's how he always was. And that was his success. He was an original thinker, and he loved original thinkers. That's why he was close with a lot of the different Gedolim in the area. And when I used to learn with him, he said, we were learning one Zvachim together, and we were on Tzadi Zayin days in Zvachim, and there was a Shaila of Shiras Etzem, a Korban Pesach, and it was a Piskei Taisis. The Piskei Taisis says, by Asi Deichaloisa say, it doesn't have to, if it's Ehev Shabinyan Acher, so you don't have to have the Idni, you can say Asi Deichaloisa say. And every time we would talk, you would say, Simcha, it's a chiyuv, I have to tell you over Torah, because if you don't forget this for years, probably about 40 years, we discussed this Piskei Taisis in Zvakin. It was like Begedim Meinei Bar, like the Gemara says in Felder, there's a chiyuv. The Rebbe feels the chiyuv that he has to give over Torah to his Talmud. There's a tshuva in the Rogat Shuvah. The Rogat Shuvah says that the only reason he answered the tshuva, he was so busy, the only reason he answered is the Torah commands him to answer Meinei Bar. He held him to law. If I hold back Torah, it's a Issa Meinei Bar. The Gemara says in Chelik. So he has to answer. So he had to answer the Shayla. That was it. That was it, the same concept. You know, the Rav used to tell me when he was in Lakewood, he was a super while he was learning the Gemara, while he was learning in Kailal. Not everybody tries to. He married the way he was supposed to marry, and in order to implement his Kailal check, if there was one in those days in Lakewood, he was a super. And then he was called Mekayim Torah Ba'ayni, when he's Mekayim Torah as a super. Then he comes to the Yeshiva Barakaway, he becomes a Rebbe, he becomes a Rav, he becomes running a sleepaway camp. This is he's Mekayim Torah Ba'aisha. He did it Ba'aisha, not necessarily in the monetary way, but it was certainly in a way that it was appropriate for him. One of the most amazing feelings that I had with Rabbi Kalish is probably, I think it was in 1979. My father had passed away. He was a Rebbe in the Yeshiva in Queens, and he was killed by a drunk driver. And I was told when I came home from Yeshiva, I was told to go to Rabbi Reuben's house. The Tzulitz right over here. I didn't know exactly what happened. I imagined the way people were maramas that my father had passed away. But I was still somewhat of a shock. All of a sudden, Rabbi Kalish comes in to Rabbi Reuben's house, and he burst out in tears and crying and hugging and kissing me. And to this day, I don't think I've ever seen that outpouring of emotion by any human being imaginable. And that was something that really left a strong imprint on me. And of course, Rabbi Kalish volunteered when I got married to give me a chassan shir. And a chassan shir from Rabbi Kalish, who's shtickle Talmud from Rabbi Badi, but it was so filled with emotion I could actually see his relationship with his wife. Now, personally, that was the greatest marriage I've ever seen in my lifetime. Rabbi Kalish and his Rebbetzin. The amount of love, the amount of emotion and feeling, and even now how she's so aristocratic and filled with royalty, how she copes with this amazing loss of this Gadol Yisrael, and the way she's makabel and accepts it and regulates. It's a great covenant to her husband, Rabbi Kalish, that she conducts herself in the most royal way in this time of tragedy. Now it says in the Chazal in Yerushalmi, Amen Tzadik Achad and Tzadik HaMeis Eladibur Peh Bilvad. There's no difference between a live tzaddik and a dead tzaddik except for the dibur. Says Yosef Engel that's why the Gemara says in Brachos that the agra, the base of the shtika, because what you're missing, you're only losing out in shtika. What does it mean? There's no difference between a tzaddik achad, tzaddik hameis. Because whenever I conduct myself, now that Rabbi Kalish is no longer alive, my anhagas are the same. If I'm learning a Gemara, I hear his voice saying chazal. If I'm going into business, I can hear him say how to conduct yourself, how to behave. I don't need him to be alive in order to know exactly how my anhaga should be. And the Torah, the way he thought, I have that as well. I have that thinking process to some degree. But to some degree. So Amen Tzadik Achad and Tzadik HaMeis Eladibur Peh Bilvad. The loss is in the dibur, that kind, beautiful voice that Rabbi Kalish had. I'm not sure it was that baritone voice that he used to, when he had trouble with his throat, but the voice was still, however his voice was, it was certainly a very beautiful voice. Make sefer mechabura, Tadai kol hachabura, Chazal say. Certainly the Arisha b'chabura, Rabbi Kalish. What does it mean, Tadai kol hachabura? Daiga, says the Rambad in Mishlei, is not a good thing. It's never good, Daigas. What does it mean you should have Daigas? It's like you should have Daigas. It's what happens when you have such a great loss, you have that Daiga. Daiga b'lei ish is something that happens. It's not something that you should have. It's a natural response to this great loss. And the only way to remove that Daiga, like the Pasuk says in Mishlei, by Daiga b'lei ish, Dover Toiv Yisbechenu, Ein Toiv Ela Torah. That if you learn Torah, so that could remove that loss, those Daigas. So the best thing Rabbi Kalish wants from us is to remove those Daigas. How to remove the Daigas is through the Limud Torah. And as the Navi tells us, as the Navi says, Zifru Torah is Moshe Avdi. You learn the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Navi says, Hinei Anochi Shaleichem es Li'anovi. That through the Torah of Moshe, the Derech Hanava of humility, like Rabbi Kalish, humble, filled with humility, Hinei Anochi Shaleichem es Li'anovi, will be Zoycha Be'ula Shleima B'nei Yameinu.
Firstly, I have to apologize. The other speakers you're all familiar with. And I see blank stares from everybody. Who is this person? So I want to thank you for the wonderful introduction. And explaining who I am and why I'm here. And don't believe what he said. All those things are just really not true. Thank you anyway. I don't know. Outside in the hall before, people were actually asking me. I feel very funny. I'm sorry. I have to apologize. I feel very funny being here and out of place. And I have to explain. Someone asked me, who are you? I said, Rabbi Bienenfield. And another person said, who are you? I said, Rabbi Bienenfield. I go, where are you, Rabbi? Wherever I go. So I will explain soon why I'm here. But first, B'shus Rosh Yeshiva. Rosh Yeshiva Shlita. B'shus Rabbanim HaChashuvim. B'shus Rabbeim. B'shus my Chaverim that actually do know who I am. B'shus the Rebbitzin. B'shus the Kalish family. B'shus Reb Daniel Shlita. And the entire Kalish Mishpacha. I've spent 30 summers with Rabbi Kalish and the Kalish family in Camp Avraham Chaim Heller and in Camp Bekaida. I watched these children grow up. I'm not sure if it was David Shimon's bar mitzvah, if it was Rabbi Daniel's bar mitzvah, but I remember Rabbi Ralph Pelstowitz spoke, and his opening words when he spoke about the Kalishes, Rabbi Polkowitz, Zeichel Levrocha, Chesadik Levrocha, he said, I want to welcome everybody to the royal family. He said, this is royalty. If you want to know what royalty is, he said, just look around. He said, I want to introduce the king of Yehoshua Kalish and the queen, Rebbetzin Kalish. This is royalty. I leaned on Rabbi Kalish for everything for the last 40 years. I asked him halacha, I asked him machshava, I asked him divrei musa, divrei hashkafa, everything. Lumdus, the keys, whatever I needed, any shaila, I went to him. I came here many a time to speak to Rabbi Kalish and learning because I had questions. I went recently many times to Cedarhurst Avenue. I went to the Kollel. I sat in on his shiurim. We spoke in learning. The last time, right before Rosh Hashanah, I was at the Kollel on Cedarhurst Avenue. He gave me his sefer. Rabbi Kalish said to me when he gave me the sefer, he says, Yaakov, only learn half of it, because half of it you already know. That was his sense of humor. He says, you know all my Torah already. I listened to his Torah. I hung on to every word that he said for 30 years in the summer. Motzei Shabbos Parshas Vayera a few weeks ago, when we were saying Tehillim here, in Waterbury, in Harborview, and everyone was saying Tehillim. I called a Talmud Muvuk of Rabbi Kalish, who's now Menachel from Mashgiach Buchni, Rabbi Yochanan's Zweig's Yeshiva in Miami. And I told him, this is the number to call if you want to say Tehillim with us. So he said, okay, we have to call. I said to him, Reb Nissen. His name is Reb Nissen Friedman Shlita. I said, Reb Nissen, before we say Tehillim, let's review Rabbi Kalish's shir. Are you allowed to say Tehillim? Rabbi Kalish had a whole shir asking if it's mutter to say Tehillim. He said it's possible, it's a deraisa. He had a diuk in the Rambam. That the Rambam says in Hilchos Avodas Kachava, in Hilchos Avodas Zara, Perikid Aleph, that you only say Tehillim for a bari. You don't say Tehillim for a chayla. And Rabbi Kalish always spoke about this. I said, but listen, Shlita, first before we say Tehillim, let's review Rabbi Shir. And we said all the diyukim and we went over it. And then he said, I forgot some of the terutzim. Baruch Hashem, I remember all the terutzim. We found Rabbi Kalish's terutzim. I said, okay, now we can hang up the phone. And now we can join everybody and say Tehillim. I go through my day and my daily routine. Everything I do, that's an exaggeration. Most of the things that I do, I think about Rabbi Kalish and his ha'aras and what he taught me. I used to say in the beginning years of Camp Avraham Chaim Heller, I would give the Dvar Halacha. And after I would give the Dvar Halacha, after Shabbos, I'd sit down, I'd sit right next to Rabbi Kalish. And he'd always tell me when I finished, not always, many times, he would tell me, Yaakov, you know my ding zach with that. Sometimes he would say, Rabbi Yaakov, you know my shita. That was music to my ears. I was going to get a shir from Rabbi Kalish. I was going to hear his shita, his ha'aras, what he held, what he was thinking. Baruch Hashem, when he said, you know, I ding zach with that. So let me hear Rabbi Kalish. You know my shita. Let's hear your shita. Usually I didn't know it. The Baal Hamor asks, why in there is Hanukkah? Is it Asal Hishtamish La'ira? the Sugin Shabbos that follow, the Mandi Yomer, that we pass the night, that's Otzelish Tam Bishloer, Zakta Balamar, that our menorahs are Zeichel and Neira Sheba since the Zeichel and Neira Sheba Heichel, the Osu Bahana, we can't derive any pleasure, we can't have any benefit from the Neiras. My good Chava, my Rebbe, my mentor, Rabbi Kalish, he was my Zeichel and Neira Sheba Heichel. I don't know if I'm ever going to meet a Yid like this again. Am I going to meet somebody that I could say finish Shas 50, 60 times? That knew Kol Torah Kula? We've been hearing this over and over again. Rabbi Ramnik Zatzal attended one of the Siyum Hashasas of Rabbi Kalish. And he said it the best at the time. The Siyum Hashas might have been here actually. I don't remember where it was. Rabbi Ramnik was there. And he said, no, Rabbi Kalish doesn't see him as Shas like we do a Siyum on Marcus. And we've been hearing this over and over about Rabbi Kalish, and read all the articles about him. There's so many stories about it. How much he knew. He knew Tanakh. He knew Medrash. A book about Halach and Shulchan Aruch. The director of our camp, the head counselor, Rabbi Gershon Kramer, many, many times used to give the Dvar Torah about Dikduk. And I was sitting next to Rabbi Kalish. And Rabbi Kalish whispered to me, because he didn't want anyone to hear that the head counsel just said a share on Dikduk, and Rabbi Kalish whispered to me, you know I didn't zach with that. You know my shita. Just 3 weeks ago, Pashas Vayetze, a young man, who's now a young man, a Balkaira in camp. I know it's Balkaria, I know. A Balkaira in camp. He was in Balkaira now in Lakewood. And he said a Shiloh came up. And he wants it, is this Ma'atav? Do we have to repeat it? I said, you know Rabbi Kalish Shita. Vayikatz Yaakov, Rabbi Kalish knew Dikduk, he knew every rule of Dikduk, he knew every Shvanah. I spoke to him about it. It says, Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnosai. Yaakov got up from his slumber. That same word, Mishnosai, is used in Pirkei Avos. Hamahalach baderach b'shona umafsik b'mishnosai. 2 different words. Vayikatz Yaakov b'mishnosai is mishnosai. It's a dagesh in the shin, it's a shvana. In Pirkei Avos, it's mishnosai without a dagesh. One is a shvana, one is a shana. It changes the meaning. Okay, no one's interested, right? This Valkyrie asked me, if you don't say there's a ma'atav, I told him Rabbi Kalish Shita. He had a Shita in Dikduk. Yeah, Shasi knew, of course. Halacha, he knew, of course. We could tell stories. I remember we had an Amid Yomi in camp. Rabbi Ari Shofel Shlita started the Amid Yomi. And we had volunteers that were going to give the Amid Yomi every day. Many times, those volunteers weren't able to be there. They weren't able to attend. They were stuck in traffic. They had a day off. It was a council. They forgot. And Rabbi Schoenfeld said, it's no problem. There was no Rabbi Kalish. Rabbi Kalish used to walk in, and no one is going to be surprised. Rabbi Kalish used to walk in and say, what daf are you learning? And he would give the Amid Yomi. Is anybody surprised? No one's surprised. Come on. It's Rabbi Kalish. He said a whole other Rishonim. Is anybody surprised? Nobody's surprised. Right? It was Rabbi Kalish. And he had no idea. He said, ask them, what daf are we doing? Rabbi Schoenfeld told me, but he said over every Turei Evan Baal Peh. That should surprise you. Every Turei Evan. Where are you going to meet a person that went through Shas 50, 60 times, unprepared, walk in, could say every Turei Evan, Zeichel, Neiros, Sheba, Heichel. He's taking you back to a different era, a different period of time. Who's ever going to see people like that again? when Reb Daniel Kalish Shlita, I'm not sure if he was 15 or 16 years old, he came to camp and he told a story. And the story was ubiquitous. It traveled like wildfire. We all heard the story. And he said he asked his father that year, when he was here in Yeshiva Farak, where he was in his father's years, so I imagine he must have been 16. And he asked his father, Kasha the Gemara Gittin. And Rabbi Kalish said to him, learn the Masechta 10 times and then come back and ask me that Kasha. You can't ask me that Kasha now. 10 times learn the Masechta. Then you learn the Masechta 10 times. He was learning it in the summer and he told over the story. Who has a father that tells him to learn a Masechta 10 times before you can ask a Kasha? Who has such a chinuch? Who has such a father, such hasagas, and such aspiration that this is what you have to do to learn to answer a kasha? Does anybody have a father like that? Does anybody have a rebbe like that? Does anybody have a Rosh Yeshiva like that? Does anybody ever meet anyone like that? I don't see any hands going up. But they tell you to learn the Masechta 10 times? Rabbi Kalish said, I let him off easy. The Goran tiny stuff Ches says that when Shloshim came to Rabbi Yehoshua, he prepared 40 times. I let the Neil off easy 10 times. The Daniel Shlita. This is Rabbi Kalish. The whole camp knew that. They saw that. The boys saw that. The boys were able to see a person that didn't belong in our generation. He was a save for the neighbor Shebaheichel. They would be in the Beis Medrash. Everyone would be learning in the Beis Medrash. And they'd see Rabbi Kalish by himself learning, never taking his head out of the Gemara. But he had to answer everyone's kashas if anyone had a kasha. He answered everyone's kasha. And he didn't shterz up to what they were learning. He didn't back off. You could be in the Beis Medrash, learn the Maseches Yevamis. There'd be a hard cheshbon in Yevamis, and you walk over to Rabbi Kalish. He was knew what's the kasha. Somebody else would be learning Megillah. Someone else is learning Shabbos. Someone else is learning a Shach or a Taz, and someone else is learning Navi. Whatever it was, Rabbi Kalish was answering it like he was in the sugya. He was right there. Everyone saw that he changed, he transformed the ruach of the camp. They were able to see a person of that stature, and everyone was proud to be in the camp. They were proud to say that I go to camp of Avraham Chaim Felder. I know Rabbi Kalish. He's my rebbe. He learns with me. I asked him kashas. Rabbi Kalish had a shita that most people in other camps didn't. And we were very proud of this, and we used to really flaunt it in our camp. I'm not saying it was a good thing, I'm not saying it was a bad thing. Borderline arrogance, maybe. But when there was a siyum being made, and during the 9 days, which we usually had siyumim in the 9 days so we could have meat, Rabbi Kalish told all the people and all boys and adults that were coming late that you don't have to wash it. Sit down to the siyum. You don't need to wash it at a Sudas mitzvah. That was his shita. You don't have to wash it at a Sudas mitzvah. He said, just join the Suda. Whatever you're eating is fine. You don't have to wash. And the kids loved that one. They loved it. And they always say, we're not washing, we don't wash, we don't have to wash. When I used to see them, we used to have a chasna during the winter, a bar mitzvah during the winter. And we would all be together, and they all come over to a table. Did you wash? No washing. No washing. Did you wash? No washing. Rabbi Kalish told you don't have to wash in the Sudas mitzvah. We have, and they wanted to actually live his Piskei Halacha. They were proud of his Piskei Halacha. This is our Moed Asra. Our Moed Asra finished Shas 60 times, finished Shulchan Aruch dozens of times, and you're going to tell me that this is wrong? He could defend any position that he took, that he posted, anything that he said. He said, my shita, this is my shita. His shita is backed by Shas being finished multiple times, Shulchan Aruch, multiple times, chazering over and over. If Rabbi Kalish says it, it's every kid can, every adult can. They felt it was from Sinai. And they said, this is what our Moira Da'asra, they were so proud. They walked around, the right word is that they worked around with a stolz. To say Rabbi Kalish is our Moira Da'asra. And it wasn't just because he was makel that he didn't have to wash. There were times that he was very machmir. And there were certain foods that we would be serving that he wasn't sure what the bracha was. They had these type of hot dogs that were in a knish. I don't know who came up with that idea, to take a hot dog and put it in a knish. Obviously it was working. This is what we serve for supper. Rabbi Kalish wasn't sure what the bracha should be, what's the ikkur, what's the tofel. And he told everyone, announced that everyone has to wash. And then everybody washed. It was sushi, it was a wrap, he wasn't sure. Then everyone, and they went to wash with the same dislavos, with the same alacrity, with the same enthusiasm. Now it's a mitzvah to wash. Now we have to wash. This is what the Rebbe said. This is what our Moira Da'asra said. This is our Lord said. Rabbi Kalish took life very, very seriously. Everything. He was a serious person. And even his humor, he took seriously. And he used to speak to me about his shitas, and he had shitas in humor. He had shitas in humor, and he told me that one of his shitas is that a pun is the lowest form of humor. So I want to tell you, Rabbi Bienenfield, Yaakov, a pun is the lowest form of humor. I said to him, and that's no joke. He said to me, I'm going to do that again. But he had shitas in humor. And he took it very seriously. The do's and don'ts of humor, what you should and what you shouldn't say. I don't know why he always told it to me. I also don't understand why he always gave shmuz in late sunnis. And for some reason, whenever he gave a shmuz, my name always came up. 2 weeks ago, somebody sent me a clip of a Bienenfield Kalish Shlita giving a shmuz in late sunnis, and again my name came up. Rabbi Kalish always said, late sunnis doesn't mean humor. You're supposed to laugh. You're supposed to be happy. Rabbi Kalish loved a good joke. He loved something that was intelligent, that was clever, that was skillful, and people laughed, and he laughed. He loved it. But he always defined late sunnis as saying, late sunnis is levity. Look in the Oxford Dictionary to see what the word levity means. The dictionary says the treatment of a serious matter with humor lacking due respect. That's late sunnis. To take something fresh and ridicule and mock it and grade it, that's late sunnis. If you did that, he was burning mad. He was infuriated if he ever heard late sunnis. How usher it was, what the Mesilas Yesharim says. You can hear 100 mussar shmuzin, and you say one word like sunnis, and it collapses and destroys all the mussar shmuzin. And we have to be so careful because there's a fine line when you're in Kiev. You have Cold War and you have skits and everything's going on. And that's why he's constantly talked to me about it. He said, be careful what everybody here says, what you say, be careful. I've worked so hard all the years since I was speaking to him. He was my Rebbe, and I listened to every word he told me. And I was very careful. I was careful about how I spoke. I was careful never to cross the line. Once, he thought I did cross the line. I made an announcement after the Dvar Halacha. I spoke about a night activity. I was the learning director and the night activity director. Those two usually don't go together. And I had to make an announcement about a night activity. And Rabbi Kalish, when I sat down, he said to me, "You shouldn't have done that." I said, "It wasn't my son, I just announced." I said what it is. He said, "No, you shouldn't have done that." Because I'm very upset. I expect more from you. I said, "I thought about it. It wasn't like son, it wasn't funny." I said the Dvar Halacha. After I said the Dvar Halacha, I went over the schedule. And I said, what the night activity is going to be. He said, "Yeah, but as soon as you announced it, everybody started laughing. And they're all wearing tefillin." He said, "It's a Kalas Rosh. You know how to laugh when you're wearing tefillin? Everyone's wearing tefillin. The boys are wearing tefillin. You got to be more nizar in what you're saying." To this day, that haunts me. I always spoke to Rabbi Kalish about it, and I never made announcements after Shacharis. I always made the announcements after Mincha, just to be Kedei Laharchi Kodam Min Aveira. I always think about that terrible day. I know exactly when it was. I know the date, and I can tell you what I said. The boys later from camp want to know. It was the 4th of July, and it was about Roy. And it was a night activity, and people started laughing. He got upset. I never saw him so mad at me. And then when I heard, when he got sick, when we got the terrible Gezerah right after Rosh Hashanah, I said, this year, Tavshin Pei, the year of Peh, your mouth. I said, I have to be more careful. Rabbi Kalish, this is the year I'm going to be Mechazik. We should all be Mechazik with our Peh. Tavshin Pei, he was so busy. The very, very first Espin that was said on Rabbi Kalish was said by Moreinu Rabbeinu, Hagaimer Moshe Brown Shlita. The first thing he said, I'd never heard Rabbi Kalish say Lashon Hara. It wasn't just Lashon Hara. It was anything. He never said anything that was inappropriate, anything that was bad. Rabbi Kalish, his pet Kodesh. He was like such a full of Paiskim as Bihem, Kedusha, Tahara. That was his pet. When I heard he was sick, I said, I got to do something right now immediately. Tavshin Pei, he got sick. This is the year of the pet. I had an opportunity. I'm not sure of the year. I'm going to end with this. I have much, much more to say. I've said enough. We've all said enough. We can keep on going and going. But to end with one story, I had the opportunity. I asked for Bernie Nagelberg. I called him last week. And I asked for Bernie. I said, do you remember when they started at the Harav Yehoshua? I think it was 28 years ago. And they're going to have a Malava Malka in the Chosen Island. I don't know if anyone here was there at the Chosen Island when they had the Malava Malka. I know Mr. Nagelberg was there, that's why I called him. He was sitting right next to me. Rabbi Kalish suggested, it was only 40 Balabatim then, he said, we're having a Malava Malka. He says, I have a very good friend from camp, Rabbi Bienenfield. He says, why don't you have him come and speak? They called me and they said, do you want to speak at this Malava Malka in the Chosen Island? I said, no. I said, I have nothing to say to you. You're not my Balabatim. I don't know you. If you wanted Dvar Torah on the Parsha, you have Moran Hagadol with Yehoshua Kalish. You don't need me. You have Rabbi Kalish. What am I going to say? I don't want to do it, and I hate Chinese food. I said, I'm really not interested. And they said, well, Rabbi Kalish asked if you could come. I said, I'll tell you. I'll come under one condition. And this was, according to Mr. Nagelberg, this was 28 years ago. I needed the opportunity not to come to Yeshiva Far Rockaway on his Shloshim to speak about him. I wanted to tell him to his face. I wanted him to hear my hesed when he was alive. And I said to the Balabatim, I said, if you allow me to talk about Rabbi Kalish, then I'll do it. I'm only going to speak about him and what he means to me, what he means to the camp, what he means to Klal Yisrael. And they said, if you want to talk about Rabbi Kalish, fine. So then I agreed to do it. That week, Rabbi Kalish called me, and I told this story at the Malach, and we're going to end with this story. My Talmidim, a couple, got married, and they were very, very modern. They went to a very, very modern high school. They came from modern families. And Rabbi Kalish called me months ago before the Malach, and he said, they're davening in his shul. And I couldn't believe it. So they're davening in your shul, of all the shuls that took you davening in your shul? Yeah, they're davening in my shul. I can't believe it. And then he used to call and send me regards. That week of the Malach, he called and he said, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you about your Talmud. I want to tell you about your Talmidah. He said, she asks me every question in Halacha, every question in Hilchos Shabbos, every question in Taras Mishpacha, every question in Pasuk B'Cholo. She's so updated in every single mitzvah, how to run a Bayis Neman the way a Jewish wife should. He says, it's unbelievable. The question she's asking. Her husband? So he comes to all my shiurim. He came to my Rambam shiur. Comes to my Minchas Chinuch shiur. Comes to my Mishnah Berurah shiur. Comes to all my shiurim. He walks me home after every shiur and every Shabbos. He walks me home. He asks me kashas that are nifla, unbelievable. He's holding in the sugyas. He's mamish ben Torah. So I couldn't picture this. I wouldn't use the word ben Torah to describe this fellow. I couldn't believe it. So like a fool, it was 28 years ago. Hopefully I've grown since then. Like a fool, I was trying to picture, to understand this better. I said to Rabbi Kalish, he comes to your shul, he walks you home, he learns with you. He says, yeah. So I said, he wears a black hat? Is he sheevish? Rabbi Kalish stopped. He goes, how should I know what he's wearing? I said, how should I know? I said, he said he walks you home, he's in your shul. He goes, yes, so? How do I know what he's wearing? He goes, Yaakov, we're talking Minchas Chinuch, Rambams, and Mishnah Berurahs. What are you, I'm looking at this, how should I know? What are you talking about? How should I know what he's wearing? That's Rabbi Kalish. He didn't see hats, he didn't see yarmulkes, he didn't see bank accounts, he didn't see IQs. What did Rabbi Kalish see? He saw the neshama. He saw a neshama that wanted to learn, a neshama that wanted to grow. And Rabbi Kalish was there for him and teaching him and learning with him. Rabbi Kalish's Ahavas Yisrael would disarm anybody. How many people could say that they know a person for months, walking, I never noticed, I didn't see, I don't know him. He saw just a neshama, Yiddish neshama. What are you talking? What are you talking so foolish? How right was he? Only if I can improve on that, if we can all improve on Ahavas Yisrael, become like Rabbi Kalish, and maybe that's Hashem, we'll all be Soicha Taka to see the Neighbors of the Heichel, the Binyan Shlishi, but the Hero of the Emmanuel.
conclude the last speaker following the CM from Moshe Kalish.
By the shiva, there's a very fresh call from one of the big people that based in Harvey, Tesler. He came over to me and my brother was there, and he came over to us and he said that what impressed me most about your father is that your father was, this incredible, Bucky Bashad, he was Shas. He said that's not what impressed me. He said I know people in B'nai Brak there, they also, big kiyum, they know. Culture, Kula. He said, what impressed me about your father is that with all his knowledge, with all his Torah knowledge, that he was a tremendous anivus. So it got me thinking. I was thinking about it. That it's really true that my father's Torah was the Torah knowledge. What equal my father's Torah knowledge was the B'kiyas B'shas, the Paiskin, and the incredible. The depth of knowledge that he had was the fact that he was nice about Chaver, that he felt other people's simchas when they had simchas, and he was truly happy for them. He had a tremendous ability to feel other people's simcha by chasanas, by other simchas. But he was able to feel other people's pain. If somebody had pain and it was a bad, massive. He had a tremendous ability to relate to empathize and to feel for other people. So I was thinking that these two things, it's not a coincidence that they had these two things. And I believe that they both come from this, what he mentioned, this anivus that my father had. I believe it both comes from this anivus. And I'll show from Chazal that this was the way the Chazal looked at anivus as well. The Gemara says in the Eruvin, Rebbe Lazar, it's important to remember Rebbe Lozer. Rebbe Lozer says, what does it say in the pasuk Lechiv Karuga Yisabaisan? It says in the pasuk in Sheloshim. So the Rebbe Lozer said that if a person makes himself like an aruga, that everyone's dashing about it. Aruga is like a patch, a vegetable patch, a garden patch. Everyone tramples on it, then within this guy, then this Tom then he remembers his learning. Then wow, but if not, if he doesn't make himself like a garden, vegetable patch, everyone is dash on it, then ain't coming to this guy. And what does this mean? So Rashi explains that what does called dashing mean? It means that someone she'ein loy gasus eruach, that someone that is no gasus eruach, and therefore, if someone has no gasus eruach, then the Talmud is miskayim biyadai. And I believe that this explains the Gvaldiga knowledge and the Amkus and the Asmada and the Gadlus Pater that my father had. It was because he was a Kol Dashimba. He had no Gasus Ruach, and therefore he reached tremendous madrigas and Torah. But there's one. But where does that explains the Torah? But where does it come with the nice Balam Chaver and the midas and the way he related to other people? Where's that ability? Where does that come from? And I think that it comes from the same anivus, because the Ramchal in Mesilas Yesharim brings the concept of anovus amaisa. And the Ramchal explains that there are three parts to this anovus amaisa. Anovus amaisa it manifests itself in three different ways. A person talks, the way the person talks to people, the way a person walks, and the way a person sits. So I was thinking about it. I saw this in my father. The way he talks. I mean, I still remember as a young child going every Friday. My father used to take us to Key Food in Farakwe. I don't know if all you old Farakwe people remember Key Food, but And that was the big shopping place in Rockaway in those days. And the way he talked to the cashiers, and he was so pleasant to to even going, to regular, people in the store. That you think that he wouldn't, but he spoke to them with such covet. As a young child, this stood out to me. And I remember as well when we used to go on trips, and we would pass a toll booth. For all you, I remember toll booths when you actually have to pay a toll, not Easy Pass. So my father, he rolled down the window and he would talk to the toll collector. He would greet them with a smile and a thank you, and it was such, beautiful. Made them feel so good. And I think that's what the Mesilas Yesharim means when he means talking, the way you talk to people, and the way he walked. So that Ramchal brings the Gemara. Gemara in Sanhedrin says, and Daf Pei Ches on the base, they say Sholchim Mitam. Sholchim Mitam is very important because it says earlier in Sanhedrin that who is Sholchim Mitam? What does it mean when Gemara says Sholchim Mitam? Who's Sholchim Mitam? That is indeed Rebbe Elazar. Gemara in Daf Yud Zayin or Beis says in Sanhedrin. So this is the same Rebbe Elazar, the Gemara in Eruvin, said over here, Daf Pei Ches in Eruvin, Sholchim Mitam, Ezu ben Olam Haba. Who's a ben Olam Haba? An Vaslan Shval Berg. Someone who's an Anov and is a Shval Berg. He's a Shval Berg. He's bent down. He walks bent over. Shayef Ayil, Shayef Benofig. He comes in bent down and he leaves bent down. The Garis by Raisa. And he's constantly Garis to Dir. Garis by Raisa to Dir. But Maksik to Yehusel and Nafshe. And he doesn't take any, he does not Maksik Taiva to himself at all. And in the way my father walked, I'll never forget those Friday nights when the early days of the Beis Medrash of Harborview, when the shul is quite young and many people are making Shalom Zachers then. So very often I go with my father Friday night to accompany him to different houses where people make Shalom Zacher. And I remember when we were walking, he walked with tremendous fats, strides, long strides, and he was on a mission. I figured, he was running to, he wanted to get there to speak. He would speak. He would bring with the oil, and we went there, and it was very nice. He would speak, and if I bring with this, and it was a beautiful thing. But so then I figured on the way back, he would be relaxed, walk back, calmly back home. But no, on the way back, he walked with, if not less, but more energy and more faster, because he had to get back. He used to say the busiest day of his week was Shabbos. He had to do his 7 blot, and he had to prepare all the shiurim and daf yomi and the shiur before Mincha, and then the drushes, and that was the Shayv Berg Shayv Ayil. He was the Garis Berais Deer. He was always busy. He was always on to the next thing. His walking was a walk of what the Mesilas Yesharim refers to as the anivus of someone who's on a mission, who just was walking to. And then the Mesilas Yesharim finally brings the way the person sits. So what does it mean? What does it mean sitting? What does the Mesilas Yesharim mean by sitting? So the Mesilas Yesharim himself explains that he's becoming ben ashvalim. That he sat between. He's b'seichami yeshavas. He didn't think of himself as this great person. He sat where the b'seichami. And I saw this many times with my father. I clearly remember a few years ago. He came with my mother. They came to my house. They didn't come often, but because they usually by the shul. But for Simchas, they came a few times. And my father came to shul, and my Rav, he saw they're visiting Rav, so he came over to my father, and he wanted to mechadin my father to sit in the front. So my father whispered to me. He said, "Moshe, I really want to sit next to you. I don't care to sit in the front." But he said, "But the Rav is being mechadin me, so I'll go. I'll just take the key, take it, and I'll go to the front if you don't mind." So I said, "Yeah, go out. No, please don't let me hold you back." So he took one Friday night to sit in the front. But then Shabbos day, he sat with me in the back, and he sat next to me the whole davening in the back. He didn't really want to sit in the front. It wasn't. He wanted to sit with the people. He wanted to sit in the people with the rest of the with me. And then I clearly remember by Sima Shas, not the past one, the one before this past one in the MSG, where the Sima Shas was. So they wanted to give my father a special seat on the dais because he was, they gave all the Magid Shirim from the Tri-State area got a seat on the dais. So my father told me, he's like, I could sit on the dais, but he's like, I want to sit with my Balabatim. I want to sit with the Balabatim. I don't want to sit on the dais. I don't need to sit there. And so that's not where I want to sit. And Taka sat with the Seif Ami, he sat with his people. And that's what gave him and that's what really, gave him, what he wanted to do. He didn't need the seat on the dais. So I was thinking that this really explains, all the godless, of a person who is a gadol b'Torah, but also a person who is a gadol and equal. I would say equal. It's hard to know which one was bigger. They were the same. They went together. They were in sync with each other. And one more story that I clearly remember that really made a tremendous Roshim on me. It also explains, maybe you could explain it through this Gevaldi and Nivos, is that once I came to visit my father, and there was a knock on the door, and my father opened the door, and there was this disheveled-looking person, the Oni who came to the door, and you see them all the time. You don't think much of them, and my father, he started to open up his heart to my father, and he started to cry. And I was looking at him, okay, he's crying, okay. Then I looked at my father, and I see tears coming down his cheek, and they were both crying. And I was just sitting there with my mouth wide open, thinking that it's incredible that how a person is able to feel another Yid's pain, no matter who the Yid is. And that made a tremendous Roshim on me. And I think this explains. I think this all comes from this Gevaldig Nivus they had, and this Gevaldig way of relating to people, and to really being nice about Chavir. I hope Abba could be a Meil Tziyosher for me, for the whole Mishpacha, for Ima, for my mother. She should live and be well. For Gans Klal Yisrael, and then Hashem bring the Gul of the Karv. We make a siyum on Mishnayos. I'll end with Eruvin. That's Masechta I chose personally. So the last Mishnah in Eruvin says, "Sharetz shnipsav b'mikdash." There's a sharetz that's found in the mikdash. Kohen mitzia ben yoner. The kohen who's there could he might see the sharetz with his belt, with the belt of the Beit Kahuna. Sheloshim says tumas. In order that the tumas shouldn't be hang around there too much, you could even use the belt. The kohen could get rid of the sharetz. This is the words of Rabbi Yehoshua. That's what Rabbi Yehoshua broke calls. Rabbi Yehuda argues. Rabbi Yehuda says no. It's fashal eight. You need to use a fashal eight. You need to use a wooden tongs. In order not to buy the tumah. So Mecham Mitzina is where you might see where you take the shares out to. So Menachechel Mitzina they say Menachechel Menahulam is bad. So you take it out to on Shabbos. Where do you take it out? Right, because you don't want to take it all the way out. So you take it out from the Hechel, from the Ulam and Mizbeach. Oh, and then you bring it to the Azor. Right, okay. There's your answer. Kiva, I remember Bakim Shadayim Azor Karis Lashigas Chatos Yishon Yitzin I say. So Kiva says that you might see it from the Kol Azar. Kiva argues. Kiva says you have to take it out from the whole Azar, not just that. You can't keep it in it. You take it out of the Azar. You take it at the place where you Chag is there. Or so she does has. Bishom Yitzin I say. Okay. Shakol Kamis Kofin Olav Sachter. And then the rest of the places that not in the Azor, you could just cover it with a softer, with a pot. Reb Shimon says, Magam Shatir L'Chacham, Magam Shatir L'Chachamim, Magam Shatir L'Chachamim. The Pharisee Shaul explains, this is going back on the earlier Mishnah that talked about fixing an instrument in the Beis HaMikdash, tying the instrument back. You're allowed to do that at the Inshlas to Mikdash, you can do it, you can tie it in the Beis HaMikdash. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon is machmir. He says, you can't do that. You can't. He says that this case is different. You can't tie it, but he says that Reb Shimon is matir. Reb Shimon is matir by tchum. Reb Shimon has a kula that you could carry 15 amas outside of the tchum. Reb Shimon says makim shatir l'chachamim shalcha nasulach. The reason why they were matir by the tchum is because it's your place. Because you could. It's your. Really it's in the tchum because they would mark it 15 amas out so people shouldn't be nifshal. Because they weren't matir. So they didn't matter mishum shvus. So that's why it's usher. Right, that's why he was machir in the Shabbos, the Mikdash. But over here he was mekel. Salat v'savat v'seftas here. Hajr Allah v'seftas Erevin Shas Mishnayis v'Hajr Chalo and Daitan Allah v'seftas Erevin Shas Mishnayis v'Daitan Allah v'seftas v'seftas Erevin Shas Mishnayis v'seftas Minon v'Ibamadei v'Ibamadawasi Hajr Allah v'seftas Erevin Shas Mishnayis v'Hajr Chalo and Daitan Allah v'seftas Sanhedrin Shas Mishnayis v'Daitan Allah v'seftas Sanhedrin Shas Mishnayis v'seftas Minon v'Ibamadei v'Ibamadawasi Hajr Allah v'seftas Sanhedrin v'seftas Erevin Shas Mishnayis v'Hajr Allah Daitan v'seftas Erevin Shas Mishnayis v'Daitan Allah v'seftas Erevin Shas Mishnayis v'seftas Minon v'Ibamadawasi Yerusam B'Fanach Adina V'Lin V'Yisenu Shnei Yerusam M'Nisenu B'Elam Azem T'Imad L'Elam Abo Chanina Bar-Papa Bar-Papa Nagam Bar-Papa Chai Bar-Papa 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 Sorcha Bar-Papa Bar-Papa Dar-Papa Harav Nagin Islanders there is Rizal Bienenfield Am Chavis Israel Kulano Nagam Zesenu V'Zeze Am Chavis Israel Kuni Yadisha Mechlin Des There Sechem Egay Techapein V'Sechem Gilam Hili Ki Hili B'Samach Kechel Man Le'Voish V'Lam La'Eshkach V'Gdach Givan Chisani Baruch Atadin Island Deich Kechel Amen Amen Salo Heute Menachem L'Chodin Island V'Zene Shazar T'Bagin V'Yeshu V'Yisam V'Edger Sh'Yisam T'Bagin V'Yeshu Kronis Shana Mashkimim Ana Mashkim L'Derei Torah Mashkim L'Derei Taylor Ana Meil Meil Ana Meil L'Mekal L'Schar V'Him Meil L'Eid Mekal L'Schar Ana Ratzim Him Ratzim Ana Ratzim L'Chai Oil Ma'bo V'Him Ratzim V'Shachas Shemar Bat Olim T'Ridim V'Shachas Ashvidam V'Mir V'Liachzu Yimei Mani Yaftach Boch Yertzim L'Fanach L'Dino Yayik Shem Shazakti L'Sayim N'Sachas Erevin V'Shas Mishnayis Kinderzim L'Haslik N'Sachas Shormachim L'Sayim L'Lumbay L'Lami Yishmar L'Laz L'Gayim L'Zgalir Zama L'Rzeba Ba'avim L'Zlifka L'Tanim L'Amirim L'Tamidecham Yam L'Zari Shloi Tamish Taim M'Piyum V'Zari V'Zari V'Abayim Siskayim V'Zalal Adan V'Yisam V'Shofet V'Shpar L'Achab V'Ktiz L'Klahak Yitziso Yisisichecho Kibi Yibari Mechav Yisif L'Vashim Eschayim Orichem Minu V'Smail L'Shivchavad L'Levis Medina V'Nreva Zumay Ba'Shaloi